Hey, welcome back to the Wednesday night Bible study, or if this is your first time, welcome. We just finished a study on Abraham, the father of many nations. And if you've not seen it or wish to review it, you can probably still find it on Facebook on the Hamilton Church of Christ site. Or you can go to the website where it is now been placed, and we'll have future ones placed. Go on to the Hamilton Church of Christ website. That's the-hcc.org. And when you get in there, you'll click on Bible Studies, and then you'll see that there's, you can click on Abraham, or on the study we did before Abraham, there's the study of Elijah. But today we're going to begin a new study of another character, the story of Joseph, beginning in Genesis chapter 37. This is a story that can inspire us and teach us. We can learn truths about God and truths about life. It's a story that can encourage us to persevere and give us hope when things aren't going well in our lives. In Joseph, we get a model of a person of character, a person with unfailing trust and devotion to God, a person with compassion and faith, a person who is able to forgive. I would argue that there is no one in Scripture who is more like Jesus Christ in his person and experiences than Joseph. As we go through the study, I'll point out some of those parallels. So the story of Joseph, it's a dramatic story with a riches to rags to riches tale. Lots of human passions come into play. We have love and we have hate, ambition and glory. You'll find jealousy and fury, treachery and deception, betrayal and forgiveness, grief and joy. All that packed into one story. So let's begin with the start of Genesis chapter 37. I'm going to call this first in our series, first installment, a dysfunctional family. So we read in verse 1. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan, and this is the account of Jacob. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. All right away, it says this is an account of Jacob. But you'll find that this and the next 12 chapters are mostly about Joseph. So who is this Jacob? Jacob was the son of Isaac. And Isaac was the son of Abraham. We got into his story a little bit, where Abraham took him to be sacrificed. So when you run in Scripture in many places, you run across a name for God as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They put those three together. So that's father, son, and grandson. Joseph was one of the sons of Jacob. That makes Joseph, this 17-year-old in the story, the great-grandson of Abraham. Joseph was the second to the youngest of 12 brothers. He was one of the 12 sons of Jacob. Now, Jacob was given another name by God, and this name was given to him after he wrestled with God from Genesis 32, that story. You might want to read that. And he was given the name Israel. So Jacob was given the name Israel. So Joseph was one of the 12 sons of Israel. And each of these sons would become one of the tribes of Israel. Does that ring a bell, the tribes of Israel? This is where the 12 tribes of Israel comes from. Okay, now that's a little bit of a sidetrack, but let's get on the story at hand. The family Joseph was a part of was a complicated, blended family. Joseph and his 11 brothers and a sister came from more than one mother. And that's an interesting story in itself, beginning back in Genesis 29. When Jacob was a young man, Jacob the father, he fell in love with a girl named Rachel. She was a beautiful daughter of a man named Laban. So Jacob and Laban made a deal. Jacob would work for Laban for 7 years and would then marry Rachel. So Jacob did put in his 7 years. But on Jacob's wedding day, Laban pulled a switch on Jacob. Jacob ended up married to Rachel's older sister, Leah. So Jacob then said he'd work 7 more years for Rachel, the woman he really loved. Laban gave him Rachel as his second wife, and Jacob worked another 7 years before he left and came to Canaan. Now, to make matters worse, Rachel wasn't able to have children. So Leah bore Jacob 7 children, 6 sons and a daughter. And as a result of Leah's and Rachel's competition for Jacob's affection and for motherhood, Jacob also had 4 sons by 2 handmaidens. 1 handmaiden from each of the wives, Leah and Rachel. Now, Rachel desperately wanted children but couldn't get pregnant. But then God blessed Rachel. In Genesis chapter 30, verse 22, then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph and said, may the Lord add to me another son. So that made Joseph the firstborn of Jacob's favorite wife. Let me throw up a genealogy of Jacob's family. We're going to run into some of these characters in the future too. That was the last of that part. Here is a genealogy. So I don't know, hopefully you can see that. So we have Jacob and his 2 wives, Leah and Rachel, who are sisters. And then from them we have I don't know if you can tell that that's in blue, the 12 sons. Okay? It's one big harmonious family, right? No, we'll soon see it is not quite so harmonious. So I come from a family with 6 brothers and sisters with 1 mother. And some of you may be yourselves or know someone from blended families due to death or divorce. But it's hard to imagine the extra complications with multiple wives and concubines. So we have the 12 tribes of Israel up there. I want to point out a couple things while we have them. The firstborn son of Jacob, that's Reuben, son of Leah, is where we get the Reuben sandwich. And then you'll notice Levi, a couple over there, also one of Leah's sons. It's where we get genes, Levi's genes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I just made those up. But there are some important people of these 12. Levi was the ancestor of none other than Moses. You've heard of him. The youngest, Benjamin, Rachel's second son, Joseph's baby brother, was the ancestor of King Saul, the first king, King Saul. Now Judah, one of Leah's sons, was the ancestor of King David, ultimately of Jesus of Nazareth, of Jesus Christ. So as interesting as I find all this, we're not getting far in our story. Let's now get back to the story at hand in chapter 37. So let me read that again. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, including his concubine brothers. And he brought their father a bad report about them. So there's Joseph out shepherding with his 10 brothers. I say 10 instead of 11 because Benjamin was too young. No explanation, but the brothers were apparently up to no good that required a report from Joseph. Joseph tells on them. Without the knowledge we're going to gain later that Joseph was a person of integrity and truth, my first impression is that he's a bit of a tattletale. And that can't be a good for his relationship with his brothers. The plot thickens in verse 3 and 4. Now Israel, that's Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made a richly ornamented robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. So Jacob loved one son more than the others. Joseph was his father's favorite. He was the firstborn of his favorite wife. He was the child of his old age. When Joseph was born, maybe Jacob got a new lease on life. Maybe Joseph was an easier child to raise. Who knows? Jacob didn't hide his favoritism toward Joseph. He put it on display by giving him the richly ornamented robe, or what we often hear as the coat of many colors. The coat of many colors, an elaborate gift. A robe designed for nobility in that day. This wasn't a short, sleeveless tunic useful for working and shepherding. Was Jacob implying, hey, Joseph, you can wear this beautiful garment because you don't have to work like those brothers of yours? It seems like Jacob is just asking for trouble. Could he have been so passive or uninvolved that he couldn't see how Joseph's brothers were reacting? Or did he know and not care? The long and short of it is, the home in which Joseph was raised was comprised of a family filled with angry, jealous, and deceitful people. Then within that hostile environment, the other sons of Jacob had watched as their father played favorites with Joseph. Their jealousy had turned into resentment and hatred. Notice that last sentence. Joseph's brothers had come to despise their younger brother so much that they could not even speak a kind word to him. Things were setting up to explode. And let me give you a visual of what's brewing. Yes, here it comes. We're talking about trouble. Adding insult to injury, Joseph was a dreamer. Let's let that trouble run out here. Joseph was a dreamer. If we look at Genesis 37, 5 through 8. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." Well, his brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Let me tell you about a dream I had." When they heard him out, it's no surprise at their reaction. The brothers sneered. "You really think you're going to be our master? That we'll serve you? You're completely nuts." But Joseph then said, "Wait, I'm not through. I have another dream. I had another dream." In verse 9 we read, "Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. 'Listen,' he said, 'I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me.'" When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So when Joseph's dad heard about this dream, it's no surprise as to his reaction. "Wait a minute, son. What's this all about? Are you trying to tell us that I'm the sun, your mother is the moon, your brothers are the 11 stars, and we're all bowing down to you? Son, I'm getting a little concerned about you." But it seems to be Jacob's parenting style. Jacob responded passively. Either he didn't notice the jealousy of his other sons, or he didn't deal with it the way he should. Things were getting out of control. And being a passive parent was not a way to calm things down. As it said, the brothers were jealous, and earlier it said they hated him. Things are about to explode. To that, I have to say again, we're looking at this. And that's where we're going to stop today. We're going to continue this story next time. Things are brewing. Trouble is on its way. So in the meantime, you all take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and may the Lord be with you.